Hi, and welcome to Better Code Today. My name's Tim Neal, and today I'm going to be talking about code comments. Now, I know from experience that some developers have strong feelings about code comments, either for or against, and can get a little bit narked when somebody suggests they try doing it differently. If you think that might be you, then there are many other videos available on YouTube that might be better for your blood pressure. For the rest of this video, I'm going to present my own thoughts on code comments and hope that somebody somewhere finds them useful. But I'm not looking to start any arguments or any fights. This is just how I feel. You may feel differently. That's your prerogative. And now we've got that out of the way, let's have a look at what we'll be covering in this video. I'll be looking at reasons not to write code comments, both the good and the bad, and then I'll be looking at reasons to write code comments, also good and bad reasons. I'll then go into how I personally prefer to comment code, which involves using comment header blocks, and then talk very briefly about automated commenting tools like GhostDoc. Hopefully it's not too much for a spoiler to say I don't personally really like them, and I'll get into why later. So let's start with some bad reasons not to write code comments. Firstly, and this is one I've seen myself, although the perpetrators don't tend to admit it, is for job security or egotistical reasons. Yes, there is an argument that if you can make your code so indecipherable that no one else stands a chance of understanding it, then it makes it harder for your employer to get rid of you, and avoiding all code comments can be a part of that. But speaking for myself, I'd much rather I was kept around because I write great code than because my code was so bad that no one else wanted to touch it when I'm gone. Some developers also like to write code that's hard to understand as they think it makes them look clever. Again, that's not something I really get myself, as I'd rather write code that I can be proud of, which includes it being as understandable as possible. But there we go, not everybody's the same. Another thing I've heard in the past is that writing comments takes too long, but seriously, it should take minutes at most, and the benefits you get will often save you far more time than that. Having said all that, there are some reasons why you might want to consider not writing code comments that have been put forward by developers I really respect, and I think we should take some time to consider them. Firstly, comments can go out of date. There are few things worse than finding a comment like this in your code base. Without the comment, the code would be perfectly understandable. It's clearly opening a connection to something. But with the comment, it just throws everything into confusion. Is the method badly named? Is the comment wrong? What's happened here? It'll probably take a fair chunk of time to get to the bottom of it, and all because of a bad comment. I've also seen something like this happen in a production code base. The comment you see here refers to a specific line of code. However, then that line of code gets removed as part of refactor, but the comment gets left behind. So anybody else coming in to work on the code later thinks that the comment applies to the next line, and that's a pretty bad situation to be in. So I think we can agree that bad or misleading comments are definitely worse than no comments at all. If you can't trust a comment, then it's better to delete it. If we do write comments, then they should be accurate, helpful, and kept up to date. If you don't think you can achieve this in your code base, then perhaps it's better not to have comments at all. Another reason I've heard against code comments is that they encourage unreadable code, as a developer may be tempted to write a quick and dirty code block and excuse it with an explanatory comment, rather than take the time to write readable code in the first place. And of course, that's not great either. But I like to think that most developers are a bit more disciplined than that and can cope with writing both comments and good code. There are also bad reasons to write code comments. The main one being to describe exactly what the code is doing. Commented code like this is no good to anyone really. Anyone who understands C# can understand this code without the need for the comments. In fact, anyone who understands any programming language at all can probably have a good guess. It's fair to say that anyone who needs comments like this to help them understand the code, they shouldn't be reading the code in the first place. Comments like this actually made the code less readable, as the reader has to constantly context switch from reading C# code to reading English comments. This can actually be quite tiring in a large code base, and as it's going to double the size of your code files, it's naturally going to increase the time you will need to actually read them. So, if not to explain the code, why should we be writing comments? Well, in my opinion, commenting should focus on two things. Firstly, documenting the API. That is, the methods and property classes that go to make up your code. Where these are public-facing, this is vital in order to help other developers understand how to interact with your software. However, I find it useful to document everything, going down to private properties and methods. If you're using Visual Studio, then this will also mean you get IntelliSense on your own code, which is fantastic. Secondly, I write comments to explain why the code does what it does. A good example would be an empty catch block, where we can explain why we're okay with silently ignoring all errors at that point. Finally, while not a reason to write comments in itself, I do find that writing comments gives me a great opportunity to perform a simple code review. If I can't explain what a method does in a line or two of English, then perhaps the method needs refactoring. If I can't explain the purpose of a parameter or what the units are if it's a numerical value, then that's a good reason to double check that the parameter is being used appropriately. My preferred way of commenting is to avoid inline comments entirely and use comment header blocks, and I think the best way to explain these is with a quick demo. So here's a very simple sample class, and to write a comment header block, all you do is hit the / key 3 times, like so. Now you just need to fill in the text you want as your comment, and we're done. It also works on properties in exactly the same way, and also on methods. Now you'll see here the comment block is slightly more complicated because you get an opportunity to describe the parameter and also what the method returns. By default, you only get a couple of XML tags in your comment header block. However, there are some others you can use. One of my favorites is the C tag, which allows you to add a reference to something else in the code base. So we could maybe say this is a sample property that gets or sets a C date time, which will then link it to the datetime class. Another one I find quite useful is the remarks property, which you can add after the summary and allows you to explain why things are the way they are. And I think it makes a great alternative to inline comments provided your method isn't too long. Because the comment headers are kept apart from the general code flow, you don't get the same problem with readability that you might get if you had a lot of inline comments. And the other great thing is that by doing this you get IntelliSense. So we'll see if I switch to another code window and create an instance of our class. When I go to select the sample method, you'll see that our comment appears next to the method, and the same is true if we go to access the property. Very simple. And to finish off, I just want to talk very briefly about automated commenting tools like GhostDoc. In short, I don't really like them. I know they are quite popular and I'm sure lots of developers use them completely successfully, and I don't have a problem with that. And I can see that if you have a really large code base without any comment header blocks and you want to create them all at once, it can be a time saver. But they don't add value to the code base. They're just going to write comments based on the names of your methods and classes and things, and a computer program is always going to be worse at deducing the purpose of your code than you are. I mentioned earlier that one of the benefits of writing comments is that it gives you an opportunity to review or at least sanity check your code, and this opportunity is lost when you run an automated tool over it to do your commenting. I know that the authors of the tool will say that it's not meant to be a complete solution and that users should just use them as a starting point and then review what's been inserted. But realistically, a lot of people, I think, use these tools, generate the comments, and then look at them and think, wow, that's close enough. I'll accept that, rather than actually taking the time to think of useful and helpful comments. So that's why I don't use them myself. If you're going to use them in your own projects, I would say at least do a serious review of what's been generated before committing your code in. The algorithms they use definitely aren't infallible, and you get some very, very odd comments if your naming structure doesn't always match the exact structure that the tool is expecting. So that's all I've got for you this time. Hopefully now you have a better understanding of the reasons for and against writing code comments, and you've also seen how to write comment header blocks in Visual Studio. I really do hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on Twitter. Thanks for watching.